Alrighty, welcome back. Holy shit, it's Jeff Booth. Jeff flew all the way from, I think you flew the furthest.
Did I?
To come here. Got here yesterday afternoon. Went out, got smashed till 4 in the morning. Got up.
I love Bitcoiners.
Got up, recorded a podcast, and he's here now. What a fucking legend. The price of tomorrow. Didn't come up when you were drinking, did it? Right, Jeff, you and I had a great chat today, and a lot of stuff clicked with me this week that hadn't clicked previously, and you talked about similar story with Luke Wyman again. A lot of stuff clicked with him again. You've been telling everyone about the deflationary environments that we should be living under for a while now, and I think it's starting to click. So look, just as an intro, hands up if you haven't read Jeff's book. It's okay if you haven't. Okay, Jeff, the TLDR of the book, just let everyone know what the TLDR is.
Technology creates productivity. Those productivity gains should flow to society in the form of lower prices. We live in a system that goes exactly the opposite to that, and that means that instead of the productivity flowing to your life in lower prices, it gets concentrated up in very few people, and your life gets worse. That's the TL. And all of the symptoms of the entire world could be described that simple to statement.
And how many pages is the book?
240.
And what did you realize today you could do with the book?
Right. Technology is deflationary. Deal with it. That could have been the book.
Okay. Explain it like I'm 5. What is going wrong? Why is technology not deflationary right now? What is going on? What is the scam?
Yeah, and James, I just said this, and there's a whole bunch of voices in this ecosystem that are actually making this better, or some of my ideas, and I'm carrying on some of the other ideas, and they're making this stronger and stronger. And Bitcoin is kind of resolves that system problem in a transition. So it is not, when people are talking about Bitcoin price going up, that is not what's happening. Everything is falling against Bitcoin forever. That's what's happening. And so when you're measuring Bitcoin price going up, you're actually defaulting to the currency that's being manipulated. That's what's happening. And so if the currency is manipulating, essentially abundance in money, if you can create unlimited monetary units, then everything else must be scarce, right? Because the monetary units are abundant, is measuring everything else. Everything has to be scarce. And if you have fixed monetary units, then that productivity will flow to society in the form of a free market force. The problem is the existing system cannot resolve that problem. And as James just said, you have about $400 trillion of global debt. And when people are measuring inside the system, US versus China versus everything else, instead of measuring the entire global debt against the entire GDP. So you had an increase of preceding 20 years before I wrote my book, you had because technology is moving faster, you had an increase of $185 trillion of global debt to create $46 trillion of GDP. So effectively $4 to $1 of debt growth for GDP. And obviously that's not sustainable. But it has to be exponentially more to offset technology going the other way. Why? Because technology is net negative GDP, right? And here's what, if you kind of look at that, imagine your calculator app, right? The first calculator app cost a couple bucks, call it $10 a month. I don't actually know exactly, but it created some value and people paid for it. And then the next entrepreneur, because there was money in it, created another calculator. And while there is a penny of profit, entrepreneurs will attack that like crazy until there's no more profit in it. And where does your calculator app show up in GDP? We used to buy calculators, right? We used to have a whole bunch of labor to be able to produce calculators, and now it's free. How about your photos? Where does that show up in GDP? You have abundance in photos. It's negative GDP. Productivity is negative GDP, especially when the rails of technology are driving things more and more digitized, more and more efficiency, and it's exponential in that function. So you have to ask yourself, if the natural world prices fall to the natural or to the marginal cost of production, which is known in economics, why isn't that happening? And it's only happening in some things, meaning there's less things to manipulate to push up in price. Food, housing, a whole bunch of that. Less and less things all the time. And we're living in that world, and we're measuring that what's happening from a broken system. So that's why it's so hard to see. And you're spending your time, most of your time, I suspect, even for Bitcoiners, are, okay, I'm going to have a hedge over here for when the system unwinds, and I'm going to try to make fiat dollars over and over and over and over and over again. And I'm going to yell at the system. I'm going to march down Wall Street. I'm going to break windows. I'm going to everything else. I'm going to yell at all those people. And every time you do, you make that system stronger. You're living in that system because you will not vote for that system to collapse. And as much like Larry, I love Larry, but like love Larry.
We all love
Larry. But we see in that piece that we see this differently because there is nothing that Powell can do. There's nothing that anyone can do in that system. Some of those people know that this is a broken system, but what would they do? Like the Fed, if the Fed stayed firm and tightened for a long time, then every one of you would vote, because what that would mean is the counterparty risk of the exact $400 trillion would collapse, and everything tied to it, your house, your supply chains, your food on the shelves, everything would fail spectacularly until there was a massive easing to try to reflate it. So if it was failing at that rate, everyone in this room would say the Fed loses its independence, and they would vote for people who would tell them they'll make it better by manipulating money. That's how dictators come into power, right? In every other country. That's what ends up happening. You essentially transfer your individual rights and freedoms away to somebody who tells you they'll make it better, and they'll manipulate money faster, right? That's what we are dealing with, and Bitcoin resolves that system peacefully. And when I say peacefully, the system's going to be, there's going to be a lot of chaos. It's going to get way worse. But for Bitcoiners, if you actually know that all prices are falling to the marginal cost of production, meaning prices are going down forever in relation to Bitcoin, then you know everything else that's going to happen in the existing system as it gets worse and worse and chaotic and choke points and all this bullshit to be able to manipulate your time, to be able to lock you into a system that's going to get worse. It's just you just tune it out and move forward into the system that you're going, that's moving forward faster and faster.
So GDP is a trick, really, because I've tracked it, I've looked. The GDP growth in this country over the last few decades has been fairly impressive, yet at the same time, we have in this country a massive growth in food banks. We now have warm banks, which is a depressing addition to people living under poverty, and we have a big growth in poverty. So GDP appears to be a trick that makes us believe we're growing.
So those things are measured in GDP. Government spending is measured in GDP. As you have to provide services to a whole bunch of people left out of jobs, as people will vote for UBI and everything else, all of that shows up in GDP. Right? It's ludicrous because it is the system, the error in the system that people are measuring to give validation to the system that it based on insolvent debt to be able to repay this insolvent debt. It's ludicrous, but you can't see that unless you're actually measuring in a different system without the counterparty risk. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's an entirely different system that works all of the rules. And what ends up happening with a lot of people in Bitcoin, because this is so hard on the brain, is they carry the baggage of the old system into the new system. And they carry that baggage of how governments will work. They carry that baggage of how debt will work. They carry that baggage of how equality will work. They carry that baggage, all of it, into the new system that operates totally different. All of those things, all of those problems, climate change, you can't solve climate change from a system that needs to grow forever by manipulating money on a finite planet. Should be pretty obvious, right? What if prices kept falling? And like the air that you breathe right now, why aren't you paying for the air that you breathe right now? Right? Seems ludicrous, right? It's as ludicrous as the system we live in, right? Because all of those things would fall at a rate which you wouldn't require the job that's going to be gone anyways to live in abundance, because prices will just keep falling, right? And because we can't see that, we carry the baggage from the old system, because humanity has never seen a system that has decentralization and security at the base layer, and at the first instance. And so for 14 years, it's gotten more secure, more decentralized, more secure, more decentralized, and you can see it rolling out against attack vector that is, the system we live in is 10,000 times bigger than Bitcoin today. And think about the power in that system. Think about your own input into that system, what you're doing to make that system stronger, and it can't kill Bitcoin. Bitcoin's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And then what people don't realize is then the second layer, and it would have to look like that if it was going to actually make it, right? It would have to protect itself against everything. That base layer would have to be so strong, so resilient. And so when I think about Bitcoin maxis that are so harsh against the small changes, they were right, because it has to be that resilient, decentralized security, because we don't normally trust something like that. We've never had a historic moment that we didn't trust the institution, the bank, the constitution, all of these that would give us our rights. Now we have something that doesn't require that trust, nor the manipulation in it, but it had to be that strong. Also, why you would naturally see, if something was so strong and all you could do is hold it, but you couldn't do anything else with it, it would create a market incentive, a natural market incentive to everybody else to say, I got a better version. I got Bitcoin 2.0. That's better than Bitcoin. And a lot of people would fall for that trap naturally, because they saw a whole bunch of other people get rich. Their existing system is breaking down and they're looking for, I need more money. How about this? And you'd create an entire crypto scam market that didn't look like Bitcoin. It'd just be natural that it would look like that. And then because technology hardens in layers like that, and it has to be resilient at the base layer, you also wouldn't see what was available on top of the layer until the next layer was there, right? None of the innovation on top, like Lightning, as an example, or Liquid, or a whole bunch of different Lightning or Fedi that's coming, or Fediment, and all these things, or Nostr, you wouldn't see what's possible with this plus this plus this until it was there. And entrepreneurs realized, holy shit, wait, I can electrocute somebody on stage? But you wouldn't see that until it's there, and it's talking to a base layer that's secure. So for the life of me, I actually can't believe that more people aren't investing all of their time in this space, because the asymmetry of that bet in aligning the world to where you would want it to go is so crazy that I can't believe more people aren't taking their time from this old system and moving it to this new system, because it's so powerful. And I'm in a fortunate position. I gotta say, 2 years ago, I was a hypocrite. And why I say that is, I wrote about this, I knew what was happening, I held Bitcoin, I kept on buying more Bitcoin, but I just held it, right? And and 90% of my time was 10% of my time was podcasts talking about this and everything else. And 90% of my time was boards of public companies or fiat companies and everything else. And that's where I was making all my income and everything else to do that. I realized, if this is going to happen, right, then I need to move 90% of my time to the system I want to make happen and use my energy there instead of the existing system. And so I'd left boards. I moved out of some of these so I could start the Ego Death Capital, so I could invest all of my time with entrepreneurs building the rails to bring on billions of people to this ecosystem. And what I would say in that, what you had to do is I had to take less money in fiat terms to be able to build this, to be able to do, but in Bitcoin terms, it's going to be way more, right? And the advantage of that is for me, I cannot believe I get to do what I get to do. I can't believe that Pete invites me to Bedford. And
Can't believe you came.
But it's crazy. We're living in a phase transition, and the people in this room, you're gonna look at some of the things that you're involved in 10 years, and you're gonna go, I was part of that ride. It's so crazy to meet the people we're meeting and the kind of the people that are driving this, and become friends with them and become and build the rails to the future where the world's going. It's just actually it's so surreal.
Well, Larry said he was at an event in 2016 with 60 people there. We've got probably 160 people in a town nobody probably had heard of, even from England, a while ago. Okay, so that really clicked for me today. And actually, the 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin meme actually clicked in a different way because of that. Right. And but then we started talking about AI.
Yeah.
So how's that going to change the game?
It doesn't change the game. It's not a different thing than Bitcoin. It's just a faster, and for those who haven't read my book, I predicted where AI would be now, right? 4 years ago, all human intelligence is error correction. We're an analog version or a meat sack version of neurons connecting on error correction. We don't realize all of the stuff that's gone before us that we put to the background that we don't have to think about every day because it's already been solved. That error correction has already been solved, and we move that to the background through that intelligence layer, and we deal on top of that background. That's how we solve things too. And so humans are just moving through that paradigm, that next step on evolution, where we're moving that intelligence to machines. And there's more storage, more compute, and it is logical, that it is completely logical, that and this is why people are scared of this, and there's two camps. Wow, this is going to make me way more productive. I'm going to make a ton of money, and that's partially true. If you're early on AI, what that actually means is you're going to, as the pie is shrinking, you're going to take more of it. Does that make sense? Right? So as the entire pie price is falling to the marginal cost of production, if you're early on AI, you're going to take more of it. But what you're doing is actually training the AI to take your job too. That's what you're doing. And so it's just a path that prices should fall at a faster and faster rate as you're doing that. Now, because of incentives and because of the way the world works, what people will think is, wow, I'm going to do this and I'm going to win. And they will think they're winning in the existing system, and the whole system is kind of burning to the ground because more and more people are losing as a result of that. But it's inevitable that at some time, and I think this is why this is hard. People think in light switch moments, and their fear overtakes their ability to think. Instead of just thinking about that, think about AI as a trend that is constantly going to get better and better, and it's going to merge with machines, all sorts of machines, humanoid machines, all sorts of different machines, and the cost of those machines and the AI is going to be super intelligence, and is going to be smarter at every single thing than you are or any of us is today. And imagine that world whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, but it's going to be a trend towards there. Wouldn't, in that world, food also be free? Right? Wouldn't, in that world, all of these things, because it would constantly trend it down, also be free? Because there's no labor in it anymore, right? All of the labor isn't needed. So if you stop that trend by manipulating money, you concentrate the AI in very few people, and everybody else is slaves. Right? That's what it would look. That's what it would look like. You have to have, and because we wouldn't vote for a system if a politician said to you, "Hey, you're going to get paid less next year, but your real income is going to go up." Most people don't even know what real wages are, right? So in other words, prices are going to fall faster than your wages are going to decline. If a politician said that to you, how many people would vote for that politician? They'd look like a lunatic, right? So it's not the politicians, it's us, right? And Bitcoin won't let us change it. So it forces that function and prices, but the only way to measure that, what's happening there, the only way to measure that productivity falling is through Bitcoin. If you hold Bitcoin, you're measuring that outcome properly. If you hold fiat, you're not.
If it's inevitable that everything trends to its like marginal cost of zero, is there any point in Bitcoiners getting involved in like the policy side of things or getting angry at the New York Times on Twitter, or should we just completely separate ourselves from that system?
So for me, I can't answer for anybody else. I can't answer for Larry. I can't answer for Greg Foss. I can't, like a lot of my friends who will do that and everything else. And I actually think that some of it's really valuable, right? In a different way than what I would do. What I do though is, okay, this is all going to look like this. You can't change, a politician inside this system can't change it at all because they can't let it collapse. They have to keep printing. Nobody in that system. And all of the media channels have to do the same thing. And the next step of that is, and we should talk about Nostr, the next step of that is they have to close the communication channels. They have to. It has to look more like China. You have to lose your individual rights and freedoms. Not maybe. It has to happen. GitHub, anything related to Bitcoin on GitHub has to be taken off. An executive order could come tomorrow to Microsoft to say, take it all off. So the whole repository, all of that. And then on Nostr too. Anything that they don't like has to. And here's the thing. People will vote to make it happen because they so need more money out of that system. That's the scary part of it. All of these things are still in front of us, and if out of the existing system. So, could you yell at it? Yeah, you could yell at it, but it won't change it, right? Because, again, go break a bunch of windows, go march against Wall Street, and or do what the truckers did, which I helped through Bitcoin. When I say I helped, I was a Bitcoin wallet holder on that, and just got when 70% of Canadians turn on you for free speech, you realize how manipulated the system is and how much they believe that. So they will not change. So all of those things, what will happen? They'll print more money to solve that problem, right? And everybody will go home and forget, right? And so all of those things, what you just asked, yes, you actually probably empower that system and you make it stronger, because you also pull away people, because now you could look like a conspiracy theorist, and there's a whole bunch of people that have no idea what we're talking about, that move further away because it's easy to label people. In-group bias, out-group bias. So they move further away from the conversation rather than closer to. And I just thought, okay, I know all of this is going to happen, so what do I do to put my time and energy into things that actually are going to make a huge difference and onboard billions of people? That's where my time and energy, again, everybody's entitled to their own thing. It's just, for my time and energy, I want to put it to where I think it will have the highest, best use.
I think I know where you want to go with Nostar now, and I think Ben's display earlier was great because I thought of Nostar as just something that was allowing us to talk to each other, a bit like a decentralized Twitter. What I realized is actually a decentralized internet.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Nostar.
So what Ben showed you there, and there's a lot of people who think about Nostr right now, and they'd say it's clunky, it's early, all of these things. Well, when I was on Twitter early, it looked the same. When I was building on the internet early, it looked. Do you want clunky? 10 minutes to download a cat picture. You want clunky, right? That's what the internet looked like. And so that's actually where the value is, because as it's clunky, it tells you where to solve to actually create value, right? And so all of those entrepreneurs that are racing into that system are creating value to be able to solve that clunky. Now, if the communications have to be closed, if that is next in line, Operation Choke Point, all of these things is next in line, CBDC is next in line. And in China, they can say to Apple, close this, and Apple closes it. Apple complies. And if you think that that won't happen in the US or here in Europe, it will happen. It has to happen to protect the existing system. The existing system has to lock you in and destroy your money in real terms to be able to remain solvent. And then it has to do it again and again because technology is moving faster and faster. So this is a guarantee that some of these communication channels get closed. And because Nostr is integrated to Bitcoin at the base layer, and it's a communication channel that nobody can stop, it's decentralized, then GitHub is going to be replaced on Nostr. YouTube is going to be replaced on Nostr. All of these centralized services, Ben showed you, Amazon is going to be replaced on Nostr, right? And instead of replacing it in a centralized version, that value is going to accrue to people, right? And prices are going to continue to fall in that version. That is very early to be able to say that. Now, think about for you personally what it means. So if you look at any other centralized application or anything that's grown really fast through network effects, YouTube, Google, Facebook, all of these things, if you're there early, Twitter, if you're there early, you're growing the growth curve, right? So if you're providing value early, you're growing along the growth curve. And so if you're a TikTok influencer early, it's resilient. You're a TikTok now later on you have to fight the algorithm to stay relevant, right? And they could take away all your views tomorrow as other people are competing, but it's more likely that you'll stay relevant versus the person that's way late to that trying to get views, right? Trying to get through that noise. If you're not on YouTube today, go and try to create a YouTube channel to get views. Good luck, right? And all of the content, everybody trying to matter and get views on YouTube, really hard. If you're already there, it persists. Now think about Nostr at the base level layer instead of at the client level. When I say client, I'm talking about instead of YouTube, the base level would be the internet or Nostr, and the client in this case would be YouTube, right? The network effects exist on the base layer, right? And the clients compete on top of that. And what that means is if you sign up in Nostr now through any client that's competing on top of that, then they are competing on top of that. Then they are competing for your attention forever. And if they increase the price to lock you in and you move all of your followers, all of your content comes with you forever. And so now imagine a network effect that grows like that, and you're early, that grows like that. And then instead of just on a Twitter type of client, now YouTube's there, now Spotify is there, now all of the artists are there. And that all accrues to you if you're providing value to other people. And so it's such a powerful idea It's such about, and it decentralizes communications, and it's tied to Bitcoin. And these things don't kind of 1 + 1 equals, in this case, 10, right? You can't see the nonlinear path until some of these things start to happen, and what that means. And some of the entrepreneurs, and when Ben shows you, and you say, "Oh, that's clunky," I bet you 99% of the people in the room said, "Oh, that's clunky, that's too hard." When I saw that, I thought, wow, you can make a smoke machine go on a QR code. That means you could open doors, you can, all of these things all over the world you could do on a QR code. And some of the innovation that's going to come on this that I can't even, it just breaks my brain to think about, but entrepreneurs are going to be all over it, are going to create crazy value. You should be there. You should be there as fast as possible, providing value, because that value will accrue to you too. And it's going to de-risk a centralized communication channel that we're in. Right? Imagine a centralized communication channel. If you think mines can't be adopted today, imagine that centralized communication channel with a variable in the AI that says, convince these people that this is the right answer, right? Owned by the state. And every click you do is trying to convince you, and it's measuring how much time you're on whatever site. And if you click off something, okay, I'm going to try something else to move this person's mind there. That's where everything today in that centralized system with AI will take you. The more that you're listening to the existing news, the more that you're leaning into the existing news, the more you're actually corrupted by that.
Round of applause for our guests.